You've been told 1,000 tricks for conversation. Ask her about her passions, mirror her energy, show interest without sounding needy. But the men who give that advice are still trying to impress women instead of affecting them. They're busy rearranging words on the surface while the real game is happening underneath the words. So here's the one rule for magnetic conversations, the rule that separates the man she forgets the moment he walks away from the man she replays in her mind at midnight. Speak to the subtext, not the surface. Every sentence you say, every pause, every look should be aimed at the feeling beneath her words, not the literal content. Women feel the conversation first and analyze it later. If you want to be unforgettable, you don't perform for her logic, you speak to her nervous system. You tune into the signal behind the signal and lead it, calmly, playfully, decisively. When you follow this rule, you stop asking boring interview-style questions because you understand that "what do you do?" is never about the job, it's about status and identity. You stop telling long stories because you know attention isn't earned by information, it's held by tension and timing. You stop over-validating because you sense when validation becomes pressure. Subtext is the invisible current inside the interaction. Power, safety, desire, challenge, belonging. When you speak to it, you control the weather in the room. You become the stable center that everything else orients around. If what you've heard so far is shifting how you see yourself, stay with me until the end, because we're just getting started and you're about to get a framework you can use tonight. Start with your state. Subtext is transmitted through the body before it's packaged into words. Breathe low and slow. Count 4 on the inhale, 6 on the exhale, until your chest drops and your shoulders unlock. Let your gaze settle, not dart. When you look at her, don't scan. Land. People trust what lands. When you speak, remove the question mark from the end of your sentences unless you're genuinely asking something you're okay not to control. That slight uptick in tone betrays approval seeking. Instead, think in periods, and let the silence after your sentences do as much work as the syllables in them. Silence is where subtext lives. It's where she feels the meaning of what you've said in her body. The man who can be quiet without getting anxious carries more gravity than the man who fills every gap with noise. The pause says, "I'm not chasing your reaction, I'm leading the pace." Next, calibrate to the emotional temperature, not the topic. If she says, "I hate small talk," she isn't asking for your philosophy on small talk. She's telling you she craves depth but doesn't want to feel trapped. A surface reply would be, "Yeah, small talk sucks." Speaking to subtext sounds like this. "Got it. You want to skip the fluff without getting heavy. Let's make it playful deep." You just mirrored the feeling she wants, lightness with meaning, and you labeled it so she can relax into it. If she jokes about how guys are all the same, a surface reply defends men. A subtext reply might be, "You sound guarded and curious at the same time. Which one wins tonight?" Now you're not arguing. You're identifying the push-pull inside her and asking her to lean into one side. You frame the dynamic and invite a choice, which creates charge. Ask questions that move the conversation from facts to felt experience. Facts keep her head busy, felt experience ties you to her memory. Instead of, "Where are you from?" try, "What place feels like home to your nervous system?" Instead of, "What do you do?" ask, "What part of your day makes you feel most alive?" These questions are not cliches. They bypass the resume and go straight to identity. Then, when she answers, don't jump to your story. Stay on her experience and deepen it by reflecting a specific sensory detail. If she says, "I feel most alive when I'm dancing," you can say, "So freedom for you has a soundtrack, and your body knows it before you do." That line isn't poetry for its own sake. It converts her words into an embodied truth. You're translating content into sensation. You're speaking to subtext. Tease in a way that sharpens the polarity without disrespect. Playful challenge is rocket fuel for attraction when it's calibrated. Surface teasing pokes at flaws. Subtext teasing highlights a tension she enjoys. If she says, "I'm picky," a clumsy tease would be, "Oh, so you're high maintenance." That triggers defense. A magnetic tease would be, "Of course you are. Standards are attractive. Just make sure they're yours, not Instagram's." You gave a compliment wrapped in a boundary. You validated the trait and challenged the source. She feels seen and slightly provoked to show you who she really is. That's the sweet spot. Warmth plus edge. Too much warmth smothers. Too much edge wounds. Blend both, and you get invitation plus intrigue. Use misinterpretation as a playful tool. When she tests you or throws a predictable line, you can flip it with a positive reframe. If she says, "You're trouble," surface talk would argue or apologize. Subtext talk says, "Only for women who confuse intensity with danger. You look like you know the difference." You just reframed trouble as intensity and made her the kind of woman who can handle it. People live up to the identities you invite them into. Give her a flattering mirror that also demands presence. Another example, if she says, "Convince me," the surface game is to start pitching yourself. The subtext play is, "I won't. Curiosity works better. You'll convince yourself if this feels right." You just refused the frame of begging, replaced it with a frame of self-selection, and signaled high value without bragging. Learn to label emotions lightly. When you name what someone feels with gentle accuracy, they relax. The nervous system interprets accurate labeling as safety. If her words speed up and she's bouncing between topics, you can say, "You have a quick mind." When you get excited, you sprint. "Slow me down when I miss a turn." You didn't say, "You're scattered." You honored the energy and asked for collaboration. If she goes quiet, don't fill the gap with anxious chatter. Try, "You just went inward." Keep it there. I like it. You normalized the shift and affirmed it. Now silence becomes intimacy instead of discomfort. This is subtext mastery, noticing shifts and speaking to them without making them wrong. In group dynamics, hold frame by managing your attention, not the crowd. If a friend interrupts, you don't fight for the floor. You turn to them, take the interruption in stride, then return to her at your pace. The signal says, "I'm not competing, I'm leading tempo." If someone tries to steal the spotlight with a louder story, let them. Smile, give them an appreciative nod, then ask her a quiet question that draws her back into a shared bubble, like, "What part of his story felt most familiar?" People chase the attention that feels earned and specific. You keep your voice calm and your questions precise, and the subtext says, "I choose depth over noise." Women feel the difference. Stop chasing laughs, start creating callbacks. A callback is when you take a detail from earlier and weave it in later to create continuity. It's memory glue. If she mentioned loving rainy days, 20 minutes later you can say, "This conversation feels like a good rain. You can hear the city, but it's all muted and calm." You've just anchored the vibe to her earlier revelation. She feels known, not just entertained. Another subtle move, plant a future snapshot. If we keep talking like this, I'm going to end up at a little coffee shop with you arguing about which country makes the best chocolate. You're not begging for a date. You're projecting a vision with texture. Be specific enough to be vivid, light enough to be non-binding. The subtext is, "I see a future scene where we're equally engaged." She leans in because a part of her wants to step into the picture you drew. Tell short, high-density stories that show, not sell. The purpose of a story in a magnetic conversation is not to impress. It's to reveal a trait through an emotion arc. Use the 3-beat pattern: spark, struggle, shift. Spark is the moment that hooked you. Struggle is where you had to adjust. Shift is how you changed. Keep it tight. I tried a cold plunge last month. The first 5 seconds punched the air out of me. My brain screamed to get out. I stayed, and on the other side there was this fierce calm I didn't know I had. That story isn't about cold water. It's about your relationship to discomfort and your capacity for self-command. She hears resilience and breath control, that subtext. Then you throw it back to her world. Where do you find that fierce calm? Now it's interactive, not a monologue. Use the hands deliberately. Your gestures should sculpt the space, not stab at it. Keep them below chest level when you want to create softness, above waist level with clear edges when you want to create structure. Open palm to invite, steeple to assert a point, palm down to land a boundary. If she starts matching your tempo or mirroring your posture, don't comment on it in a creepy way. Just slightly change your pace and see if she follows. If she does, you're leading the subtext. If she doesn't, you adjust, not to please, but to keep the dance balanced. Leadership is responsiveness, not rigidity. Qualify without pleading. Most men are so busy proving they're worthy that they forget to ask whether she's a fit for their life. Subtext qualification is subtle and respectful. You're not testing to judge, you're inviting her to show you her edge. I value women who are kind without being nice. How do you draw that line? Or, I like people who can disagree without getting defensive. What opinion of yours is unpopular for the right reasons? Now she gets to rise and reveal, and you get to listen for how she thinks under pressure. If she throws the question back at you, answer concisely and ground it with a principle. Kind is generous. Nice avoids conflict. I prefer truth with warmth. Principle-based answers transmit spine. When tension rises, because it will, hold it. Tension is not a problem. It's the beginning of intimacy. If she becomes slightly combative, don't match her tone, lower yours. If she says, "You're very sure of yourself," the surface reply is that bad? The subtext move is, "I'm sure of my pace. Everything else I'm curious about." You reframed certainty as tempo control, which is less threatening and more attractive. If she accuses you of being too forward, you can reply, "I move fast when I feel clarity. I'm also good at breaks." You signal decisiveness and boundaries in the same breath. She can relax because she senses you can both accelerate and slow down responsibly. Use contrast to keep her nervous system engaged. Humans habituate quickly. Sameness dissolves attention. If the conversation has been intense, deliberately inject lightness. "Okay, enough depth. Hit me with the most ridiculous fact you know." If it's been playful, slide in a reflective prompt. Pause. What's something you don't say out loud because you don't want people to misread you? Ride waves between playful and profound. That contrast creates a mild unpredictability that reads as charisma. You're not chaotic, you're dynamic. The subtext says, "I can hold multiple modes and switch with control." That's the kind of man who can lead a woman through experiences without burning her out. Don't dodge the feminine tests. Convert them. Tests are subtext audits. She isn't trying to destroy you. She's checking if your words match your center. If she withdraws a little, don't pursue harder. Lean back one step and create space where she chooses to return. If she challenges your opinion, don't try to win with data. State your preference. Show that you understand hers and reframe the difference as polarity. We don't have to agree. Difference is spark. I like spark. You just made disagreement part of the chemistry instead of a threat. If she gives a backhanded compliment, "You're probably used to girls falling for that line." Smile and say, "I'm used to being direct. People who like that tend to stick around." You didn't take the bait. You reaffirmed your style and stayed forward moving. Master the exit. Scarcity is not a trick. It's a rhythm. Even incredible conversations need an ending that leaves oxygen in the fire. Don't drag it out until it cools. When you feel a peak, laughter, a shared look, a grounded silence, land it. "I like where this is going. Let's not rush it." Then you propose a specific next step with a texture that matches your shared vibe. Thursday, 7:30, the place that smells like cedar and cinnamon. You'll like the bar seats. If she hesitates, don't push. Say, "No pressure. If it's a yes later, tell me. I'd rather keep the quality we just had than force timing." That line protects the vibe and signals you choose quality over outcome. She'll feel the difference between a man hunting for a result and a man curating an experience. Cut the habits that drain your magnetism. Over-explaining kills charge because it proves you're arguing with an imaginary judge. Speak your point once cleanly and let it land. Asking stacked questions back to back puts her in an interrogation frame. Ask one, listen fully, and deepen with a reflection rather than piling on. Complimenting excessively sounds like leverage. One or two precise compliments, anchored in specifics that aren't purely looks-based, build more attraction. "I like how your eyes stop moving when you're focused. It's rare." That shows you're paying attention to the signal beneath beauty, not just features, but the manner of her attention. Your presence is the anchor. Your words are the current. Calibrate the current to the anchor. If you feel yourself speeding up, slow your breath and drop your voice half a step. If you feel yourself shrinking, expand your posture and plant your feet. If you lose your place, don't panic. Name it. "I just lost my thought watching you think." You turned a slip into intimacy. If she calls you on it, smile. "It happens when I like the conversation." You give a small reveal without gushing. That's how you reveal interest without surrendering your frame. Because here's the truth, women don't need perfection, they need coherence. When your state, your words, and your pacing align, subtext speaks louder than any clever line. Let's talk about boundaries in real time, because without them, any conversational skill looks like a performance. If she asks you to share something you don't want to share yet, say, "I'm going to keep that for later. Ask me again when we've logged more miles." You just set a boundary with a future orientation instead of a hard no. If she's on her phone mid-conversation, don't scold. Pause your sentence, wait, then say softly, "I'll tell you the rest when you're back." That's the cleanest, least needy way to restore presence. If she still doesn't come back, you smile and exit. Good talking to you. Your dignity is not negotiable, and the subtext of dignity is rare enough that people adjust around it. Use your attention like a spotlight, not a floodlight. Floodlight attention tries to track everything and ends up nowhere. Spotlight attention chooses one thing and makes it important. When she mentions a detail, her dislike of birthday celebrations, the way her grandmother used to braid her hair, a fascination with thunderstorms, you follow that thread, not to pry, but to connect. So you don't like being the center of attention, but you like feeling seen. Do I have that right? She will correct you if you miss, and even the correction builds intimacy because you showed the courage to guess. People feel closer to those who risk misreading them, and then repair in real time than to those who hide behind generic politeness. Practice self-disclosure as a pressure valve, not a resume dump. Share clean slices of yourself tied to the moment you're in, not irrelevant highlights meant to impress. I get impatient with small talk too. I solved it by making ridiculous bets with myself, like, get to the texture of someone's childhood in 3 questions. That's a reveal, plus a playful frame that invites cooperation. She might say, "Okay, try me," and you're off to the races. Or she might roll her eyes and laugh, which is also connection. You're not filtering for approval, you're filtering for fit. Subtext says, "You're welcome to join, but I'm already moving." Train the muscle of conversational escalation without forcing intimacy. Think of it as 4 rungs: neutral, personal, vulnerable, intimate. Neutral is safe topics with a twist. Personal is identity-level questions. Vulnerable is selective truths that cost you something, admitting fear, revealing a growth edge. Intimate is shared presence, eye contact, silence that doesn't demand. You don't sprint to rung 4. You move like a good DJ, reading the room, raising energy, dropping it, raising it again. When you take a small risk, I'm good at reading people and I'm getting a fierce, soft vibe from you. Watch her reaction. If she opens, you go 1 rung up. If she deflects, you dance sideways with humor and try a different lane later. Respect isn't a performance, it's calibration in motion. If this is hitting something inside you and you're realizing how much of your past conversations lived on the surface, drop your thoughts below. I read every single one because this is the craft that quietly changes men's lives, and most guys never get it. And if a brother in your circle needs to hear this, send it to him today. Don't keep it to yourself. Men should not be learning this alone, and a single reframe about subtext could save him years of confusion. Now let's refine the tactical core so you can deploy it under pressure. Before you speak, ask yourself, what is she trying to feel right now? Not, what does she want to hear? That's surface. Ask, what feeling does she want this moment to give her? If she's restless, she wants grounding. If she's guarded, she wants safety without boredom. If she's bored, she wants novelty that doesn't feel like a performance. Then choose a move that delivers that feeling. Slower tempo for grounding, accurate labeling for safety, playful challenge for novelty. You become the man who can change the climate on demand. That's rare. That's leadership. When you're text messaging, the same rule applies. Speak to the subtext of the screen, which is pacing and imagery, not paragraphs. Keep your messages short, specific, and textured. If she sends a photo of rain on a window, don't reply, "Nice." Say, "That sound makes everything else feel far away." If she takes hours to reply, don't punish or chase. Match pace and keep quality. I like slow messages when they're worth the wait. Keep it like this. You just set a standard without scolding. If she sends a 1-word answer, don't demand effort. Create a better hook. Tell me the story behind the last scar on your knee. She'll either play or she won't. Your frame remains steady. When you're in person and the environment is loud, bring her into focus by lowering your voice and stepping half a pace closer. Not enough to invade, just enough to create a shared bubble. Ask a grounded question in the middle of the noise. What was the best moment of your week that no one noticed but you? That question is a doorway into the part of her life that isn't performative. If she answers with something mundane, treat it like treasure. People reveal in small moments. Your respect for the small is what earns you the big. If you're thinking, this sounds like mind control, it's not. It's mind leadership, starting with your own. You can't speak to subtext if your own subtext is desperation. The solution isn't to pretend, it's to build a life that fills you so you show up to every conversation from overflow, not hunger. Overflow is attractive because it says, I am already in motion. Come join if you can keep up. Hunger is repulsive because it says, complete me. Women don't want a job, they want a journey. Your conversation is an invitation to that journey. You will mess this up sometimes. You'll misread. You'll overplay a tease. You'll rush a silence. You'll qualify too hard. When that happens, own it quickly and cleanly. I missed you there. Let's rewind. Or, that came out heavier than I meant it. Reset. Those lines don't just repair, they elevate you, because accountability is a deep subtext signal of strength. Men who can repair in real time are rare. Rarity is attractive. And yes, desire lives in this too. Desire is not dirty, it's directional. Speak your desire with warmth and options. I'm drawn to you. I want more of this. If you're a yes, great. If you're a no, I keep liking my night. That's clean masculinity. It's the opposite of pressure. She feels your arrow without feeling your grip. That's the difference between being intense and being invasive. If I were to distill everything into a practice you can do in the next 7 days, it would be this. In every conversation, ask yourself 3 times, silently, what's the subtext here? At the beginning, when you're nervous. In the middle, when you feel momentum. At the end, when you're tempted to linger. At the beginning, name the vibe you want to create. Playful, deep, curious, calm, slow, electric. In the middle, notice one micro shift in her body. A breath, a shoulder drop, eyes softening, and say a sentence that honors it. At the end, exit on the high and protect the oxygen in the fire. That's how you go from forgettable to replayed. That's how you become the man she thinks about hours later when the room is quiet and her phone is face down. You wanted the one rule for magnetic conversations. Here it is again, branded into your mind. Speak to the subtext, not the surface. Train your breath until your presence leads. Train your attention until you hear the feeling beneath the words. Train your language until your sentences are clean and your silences are confident. Do this, and you won't need to learn 1,000 lines. You won't need to be louder than the room. You'll be the man whose calm creates gravity, whose curiosity disarms, whose edges invite respect, whose standards invite effort. And when she leaves, she won't remember everything you said. She'll remember how her body settled, how her mind lit up, how the world felt different around you. That is the only advertising that matters in attraction. If what you've heard reshaped how you think about conversations, and you can feel the difference it's going to make the next time you open your mouth, then keep going with me. Drop the one line from this that hit you hardest. I read every single one because it tells me where you're sharpening. And if there's a man in your life who keeps drowning in surface talk, send this to him now. Don't keep it. This is how we raise the standard. If you want more of this, more frameworks that don't just teach you what to say but who to be, stay close. The men who win in attraction are the ones who master the invisible. You just learned the rule that governs it. Now go practice, breathe slow, look steady, and speak to the subtext. That's how you become magnetic without trying.